how 3 different leaders responded to when I became disabled. Thoughts I had after I made this reel on why I wear hats, because y'all really like my hats on here. I'm not going to recount here. If you want to know the backstory and how I got a traumatic brain injury, I was called a TBI. Go check this out. But once I made that post, it actually hit me like how much of a big deal this was and how the leadership responses were totally different. So first leader had already insisted that I share an office specifically with him. It was really weird because I was a graduate assistant and he was a director. Everyone else was open floor plan. I don't know why I was there. I write about everything that went on in that situation in my chapter on workplace bullying in academia in the book Navigating Your Ph.D., which I've talked about on here. He was so offended by my injury. Of course, he, performatively was like, oh, I'm so glad you're okay with your car accident. Let us know what you need. But then made such a big deal about that the lights were unbearable for me. And I actually didn't stand up for myself much at all then. He was just in and out of the office. Some days he wouldn't be there. So if he wasn't there, the lights would be off and I would be doing my job because already having the light from the computer was extremely painful. But obviously I didn't have a way around that. And then he would come in and ask if he could turn them on. And I always said yes. I never set a boundary. I didn't feel like I could. And he would still, I would know from my other coworkers, he would still complain to them about how unfair it was to him that he had to ask to turn the lights on. So scale on 10, like 0 out of 10 response there. At the same time, I was in a pretty critical stage of PhD. I was getting ready to take my comprehensive exams, which is, if you don't know, when you are asked questions about anything in your entire field and you have to respond from memory with the correct citations. No notes, no AI at that time, nothing. And my PhD advisor, we were like 3 weeks out before comprehensive exams, and my PhD advisor was like, you are not taking these until you are well. And she really put her foot down. And of course, I was stubborn and wanted to insist because I knew it would delay finishing my PhD and I didn't want to do it. And she was like, you will not get kicked out of this program because you will not take care of yourself. I realized at this point, you're like 3 years into a pretty consistent relationship. This is why I always tell people when they ask me what's the biggest advice you can give for people seeking graduate opportunities is check out the advisor, talk to their students, because as much as that sucked, she was right. And she did all the administrative burden of making that happen and telling the other leadership in our program why I would not be getting penalized for delaying in this. And it sucked. And by the next semester, yes, I had to lay on the floor a few times in the dark, and they still let me take my exams in the dark. Still proctored like everyone else, but the 2 other PhD students were in a room with lights on, and I was in a room right next to it with the lights off. 10 out of 10 response. And then I changed jobs, and obviously, if you can't tell, the first job was abusive. And so when I was at this next job, I still tried to not make it a deal at all because the first boss had made it such a big deal. It was in an open floor office plan. The lights were really bright. It was really harsh lighting. And so I just literally brought a little blanket to work because it was kind of cold in there anyway. And I just put it over my head and over my computer looking like a total pervert. And my boss rightfully came out one day and peeked under the blanket, was like, you good in here? She could see I was actually doing my work. And I was like, yeah, just harsh lights bother me. And she was like, this sounds like something that might need an ADA accommodation. I was like, oh no, I don't want to be bothered. She was like, you deserve to be comfortable while you work. My head exploded like those little cartoon characters in Big Mouth. I had never been told that before. She was like, this is unacceptable. If you can't be in light, then we need to get you an office where it can be dark. She's like, are you seeing a doctor about this? I was like, yeah, I get a vision therapist. I see a vision therapist every week. She was like, tell him to write you some papers and bring in to HR, and it shouldn't be a problem. It is your legal right to have a very reasonable accommodation. And I was like, huh. And I still felt really uncomfortable with it, but I did it, and I had an office within, that paperwork got done within a week. And then I had my own office, which was unusual of someone at my level in that organization in my tenure, but it was never a deal. And it so wasn't even a deal that my other teammates, when I had to go to their offices, which obviously had lights on, I just wore sunglasses or a hat because, again, I would literally go cross-eyed and pass out. And nobody acted like it was weird. Nobody got on my ass about it. Nothing. And I should have realized with how much stigma I had towards myself about even asking for an accommodation, and with that first director's behavior, I should have realized how rare it was to have a boss that was like, it is absolutely unacceptable for you to not have accommodations. She had to combat my own internalized ableism for me to ask for help. And isn't it fucked that even to me, going through that, the first boss's response I thought was okay, and the third one shocked me. Even though I had a very supportive PhD advisor at that time. And I'm bringing this up not just as a story about me, but because I have 3 clients right now in 3 different countries who have had doctors orders ADA accommodations or whatever it is in that country, whatever the equivalent is, but all 3 countries have disability laws, and their accommodations are all very minor, very reasonable, honestly just good management, and they are being drugged through just stall after stall in HR in the organization. I mean, literally one of the accommodations is to have a consistent person to report their work to, and it has been almost a year. And yes, this is illegal in all of the countries they are in, but keep in mind that the burden of proving that and on hiring the legal help you need to do that is often on them, not the organization. They always get support, and we've been working on that in group coaching and in the one-on-one consults, and that's why in my workplace bullying course we have a devoted module for EEOC filing claims, because you don't need a lawyer for that, and how to document for it. But all of this process, and that it's just being drug out so they don't get denied that they did anything illegal, but making it while they are suffering, and even having their performance critiqued while not being provided with human rights and their legally obligated disability accommodations, is a rage I do not know how to describe. The difference in my abilities did not change in any of those workplaces. The difference was the leadership and the organizational processes being ready to do this. So here's some main takeaways I want y'all to consider. Is 1, none of us are above a disability. If we live long enough, if we are so fortunate, eventually we're going to need something. 2, leadership and supportive processes go hand in hand. Even if not intended, if you are not prepared for something like that, it shows and it is impacting your employees, whether they disclose or not. I had a visible issue. If it was not visible, it would not have had the same response. And 3, while after years of vision therapy and TMJ treatment, which require tremendous financial privilege because none of those things are covered by insurance, and having the TBI made my TMJ, I didn't know I had TMJ before it because of the clenching from the pain, just made it so much worse, and then it's like feeding off of each other. That my whole head and neck times the light sensitivity is just, that was why I was passing out. After years of treatment of that, now I'm at the point where I can usually be indoors without a hat on for a few hours. Usually, not always. So if you ever see me inside without a hat on, please know I mean no disrespect. The lights are just bright for me. And I ask of you to consider who else in your organization might be having a similar issue or an issue with something else that wouldn't have occurred to you because it's not a problem for you yet. And how you respond, and if you take action at all, will matter tremendously for how you are perceived by other people and how your business runs. In the introduction to my book, I do talk about universal design, and it is the framework I use when I talk about the unwritten rules of work and how they impact different people. I had started this research before my TBI ever happened. It has absolutely only enforced everything that I look at, and has continued to be a lens that shapes my experience and how I perceive the experience of others. Because not everybody else's disability looks like fabulous hats, and you should be open to more forms of fabulous.